I'm Rick. As you see the tail, we got little Missy sitting over here fiddling with her, scratching, got one of them round scratch things, so it's got a ball in it, so she's been kicking the ball around a little bit. We are looking at Maximum Tech. This was a Fan Pro product, or is a Fan Pro product. This is the revised edition. And I've had this in my work truck for the past couple weeks, slowly reading through it. And get some greasy stuff on the edges. From my the whole inside of my truck is kind of greasy because of the nature of the business. Anyway, we're looking at what we got. Shift into high gear. Rediscovered Star League technology gives the inner sphere a new edge in the battlefield, but new weapons require new tactics, now as never before. Ingenuity counts more than tougher mechs and bigger guns. Maximum Tech brings BattleTech players into the brave new world of warfare, and we're thinking on your feet can win the day. So this is from FanPro/Wiz Kids. Goes with a series, and I believe this works in the group that Total Warfare also worked out of. I may be wrong on that. By all means, correct me if I am wrong, because that's how else will we learn if we don't get told we're wrong, and we need to accept the fact. So we get into a lot of stuff, and we'll break down a little bit. I don't want to go into an hour-long video on it because there's a lot of material. We have an introduction and expanded terrain and weather rules, so terrain and movement, combat, weapon, vehicles, miscellaneous rules, including artillery and abilities and dueling rules, structures, smoke, concealing information, double blinds, construction chapter, general rules, mech construction, vehicle construction. Then we get into various equipment that goes down, and then the cost and level 3 battle values and so on and so forth. I'm not totally comfortable yet with the idea on the what these, well, the various levels of play is yet. I'm kind of getting the idea of it. It's just like the slash battle value, where you get 20,000 battle value to create your military unit. I understand the concept behind it. I've never played with it. Not sure. I don't know enough about it to make a decision whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. Y'all know more about that than I do. For those of you guys that are regular players, I've been playing the last 15 years. Like I said, it's going on 20 years since the last time I actually sat down and played BattleTech, because I simply couldn't find anybody to play. And now that my time, like as I say over and over again, my hours are crazy, and I'm getting burned up by it. I'm not going to lie. It's getting harder and harder for me to deal with some of the insanity. I worked 3 hours yesterday in the morning. And so I went to work at 7, was home by 10, and then the wife and I, it was Friday, so we ran to the bank, ran our errands, went out and got our cashier's checks for our mortgage, so it's ready. Paid on our loan for the furnace, that kind of crap. And then when I got back, I got a call from the owner of the strip club next door asking if I could possibly mow it yesterday. It was nice enough yesterday. It rained all day Thursday, and it was rainy this morning, so that's what he was worried about. And coming up on the weekend, and grass been growing pretty fast around here in Iowa. So I said I'll fit it in. So I ran over. It takes like almost 2 hours to do that, to mow that whole property over there and do the trimming and crap. And then as soon as I got done with that, I came back to the house and jumped, got my gear and was back out the door, back at the shop by 3 o'clock. In the truck, and then I worked till about 2 o'clock in the morning, and I had 2 interesting events happening. This is somewhat typical. While mowing the strip club, I found a brand new phone in the ditch, and I don't know if it probably had somebody put it on the roof of their car, drove off, and it fell off, or they were driving down 2nd Avenue and it fell off. But there was no scratches, it wasn't broke, and it lit up. It turned right on. There was no security protocol to keep you out of it. So I lit it up, and I looked at it, and it's got like 8% charge left on it, and it's an Apple phone, so I don't have anything that can charge it. And the person who had it had made like 7 calls. So I just texted every one of those and said, hey, I found this phone. Do you know who it belonged to? And on the 4th try, I actually got a response. The phone's owner's brother. And so we met at one of the jobs I was doing out in Altoona, and where I gave it to him, and then he gave me a small reward for it, which he didn't have to do. And I tried telling him that, but he wouldn't. He wasn't. He says, go out and take your wife to dinner, kind of thing. So he gave me $25, which is nice of him. I was just trying to be a good person and do a good deed. Now, I've done enough crap in my lifetime, stupid things, that karma-wise, I try to do everything good that I can. Am I perfect? No. Do I occasionally bend the rules? Who doesn't? Who doesn't? And sometimes that bites you in the ass. Is what it is, right? But late that night, last night, about 12:30, the last place it did is a little strip mall down on the east side of downtown, or the west side of downtown Des Moines, and it's in a pretty I won't say upscale, but an upper scale area, and the Ingersoll Avenue corridor is just packed full of businesses and shops, and behind them are apartment buildings and condos. So this place I was at, it's 5,000 gallons. It takes 2 trips to do. It's always a nasty pit, and it takes a little while to try to get the ball. I can never get it all cleaned out of there. I do the best I can. Now, the downside is that the manholes, and there's 3 of them, literally in front of the doors to this Noodle and Co. place. And this little strip mall's got 3 restaurants. Noodles is one, an ice cream place, and then a Mexican steakhouse at the end, all dumping into this. Is why the thing's thick with grease and oil. And it takes a minute. So I start at 10 o'clock. As soon as I can, as soon as the store closes, I'm there pumping. And I try to get done as fast as I can, but it still takes usually till 1 o'clock in the morning. And every other time I'm there, somebody bitches, somebody cries. This time I get this Karen, for the lack of a good word, and I don't like tossing it around, this lady who didn't want to listen to that truck pump run for 3 hours, and I get that. I get that. Come out and demanded that I stop and go away. And when I refused to do that, I quoted city ordinance, mandates this thing to be done. It has to be serviced. You don't get to say, oh, I can't service it because they don't want to hear the racket. If you choose to live in the city, noise comes with living in the city. So she gets belligerent. Her and a little yappy dog gets belligerent, and she kept making motions like she was going to reach for something. She was trying to pull. No, she was reaching for something in her damn purse, like she was getting confidence from it. The very last exchange, because I tried to give her my boss's card. I tried to invite her to call and complain. I said, call my boss and complain. Call the owners of the building and complain. I just do the job. I don't control when I can go do it. And I can't show up at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and tell the owners of this restaurant to shut their doors for 3 hours because people are literally going to be stepping over the manholes to get inside. That's not going to happen. Not going to happen. So my options are, start at 10 p.m. Ask yourself, if you have to have this big, huge septic truck hammering away 100 feet outside your building, your home, would you rather it be from 10 o'clock till 12:30 in the morning? Or would you rather me come out there at say, 3 o'clock in the morning till 4:30? You think these same people wouldn't come over and cry and complain? So she either threatened to shoot me or go get her gun, is what I think she said, or go get the cops. But between my hearing getting old and my hearing's getting dodgy, especially in this ear, much as she don't believe me, it's the truth. You're around powerful machinery hammering away for 20 hours after hours after hours. No matter how much ear protection you wear, you still damage your damn ears. And I'm at that stage, and I'll be 58 in September, so it's just part of getting old. So between my hearing plugs that were in my ears, the noise of the truck, and her shouting, I couldn't be 100% sure about, everything she said. Cops didn't come, but she got really upset when I told her, says, the cops won't do nothing. They won't. They'll show up, they'll ask what I'm doing, I'll show them, and they'll just leave. Because city ordinance says I can be there. Because it's a job that has to be done. That was my night last night. So I put in 15 hours yesterday. Plus I mowed the strip club. Plus we ran errands. I had 51 hours for the end of the week. So it was all overtime. Anyway, so I was reading through this thing, and I found a lot of stuff in here that I found useful. And for a lot of people who are in the role-playing game business, you would call this crunch. This is extra crunch with a serving of extra crunch. What we mean by that is the more mechanic options, the more rule sets you have available, the crunchier the rules get, the more detail oriented you need to be. So a lot of people don't want to play very sophisticated games. They don't want to have all the variety and variance and options available. But as I point out over and over again over the years and numerous videos, your favorite games now, whether it's a wartop game or a role-playing game, doesn't make a difference. It comes through a line of progression of development. Every step of the way, improvements are made. Some things are better, some things are worse, and each new version edition that comes out, new stuff's added, old stuff's rejected or modified and extended. So when we look at the big gorilla of the RPG world, the Dungeons and Dragons, you can see the evolution through various editions over the years that they've tried to manipulate and change. The most rule extensive version is 3 or 3.0. Or 3 or 3.5, which is most commonly, most of my core books are 3.5 version, which is mostly just a cover difference. Color-wise, the cover art is a little different, but the fact is that there's such a massive volume of options available that a lot of people become overwhelmed by it. And so when we look at books like this, that's part of that. We are the game company is catering to a base group of people who want extra shit. We want the options, and this is where we get them. So we talk about things like I said, we go back in here and we talk about weather rules. Well, most gamers don't want to be bothered by the weather. You want to play your favorite BattleTech combat game, and you want to do it in a blizzard. Well, there's a lot of criteria that make that work, including visibility. So that would require extra rules, extra crunch. Now, because all the extra crunch has been stuck in a bowl and marinated and soaked in milk and consumed and spit out, and this allows the later generations to be much smoother, much more concise, and we know what the player base mostly needs and wants, and then we add extra source books to give us the additional rules and rule sets and options that you might and I might want, but the other guy don't want, right? So that's basically what these things pull down to. So expanded terrain and weather rules. There's a lot of terrain rules in most tabletop word games anyway. That's just the nature of it. It's to give us, if you're fighting uphill, you should take a penalty trying to get up the hill. Where people are defending you or defending against you fighting up the hill, get an advantage in some fashion because they've got the high ground, because they're defensible, they're in a better defensible position, because you have to fight up the hill to get to them, etc. So this just expands on that. Including weather conditions, blizzards, blowing sand, dusk, earthquakes, fire, fog, gravity, night. It just goes through the list. Terrain conditions, deep snow, geysers, ice, mud, rapids. If you go and look at some of the source books, and definitely the novels, in any franchise, you will find that the characters in those stories are put up against some pretty extreme situations that the original rule sets did not take into account, did not cover. So we come back later and the companies add to this and say, now you can do this, 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 and this, in addition to the original stuff, giving you more options, a wider range. Yes, it's crunchy, because it requires you, at least somebody, to be aware that there are options and what they are. And sometimes you choose to pick something you've never done before, like a double blind, and it's a learning curve. It's a learning experience. You have to do it. The more you do it, the better it gets. That's why I always tell people to be careful about when you get new players in, of overwhelming them with too many rules, because it just isn't always going to work out the way you think it should. So lots of terrain. I know it's 5 or 6 pages here. Then we get into movement modifiers, climbing and leaping, skidding, dangle and drop, evading, backward movement, vehicle skidding, flipping over, piloting skill rolls. combat, critical rules table, hit locations, engine explosions, hull down. So I bury my tanks down in the ground. We're gonna create some semi bunkers, so the only thing sticking above is the turrets and stuff, and that has modifiers for the your opposition who are attacking you, but it also gives the player who's putting their tank in that position modifiers too, and they're not all negative and positive. They're not all good. So the downside is, the upside is they gain a bunch of extra defense by making a much smaller target for their foe to hit. One of the downside is that the foe will hit. It's going to increase the likelihood that it hits the turret, because the turret's what's above the the ground, and the opposite is that your player who's choosing to do that hull down maneuver is sacrificing maneuverability, movement, and the ability to extradite themselves in a hurry. You can't pivot your tank if it's in a pit, right? And it take that into account. Then we get talks about line of sight and dead zones, damage. Now most shooter games, most tabletop war games, most fantasy role-playing games have a concept of line of sight, even if it's very brief. Hell, my game system has a section and some rules for line of sight and what you can see with the naked eye, or technically with your sensors, versus dead zones. Dead zones would be a blind spot. Perhaps, visually speaking, your canopy has some barriers and you can't see. Here's a professional tip from a commercial truck driver. Now, grant you, I don't drive a semi, but I still drive a pretty beefy truck. That said, those side mirrors that we are totally dependent on to see behind us, we cannot look over our shoulder because there's a big honking thing behind us blocking our view. In my case, it's a tank, but in some cases, it's a big box, depending on what you're driving. So those side mirrors are very crucial. You have to have them. The problem is that they're pretty good size, and optically speaking, they create blind spots, so as you cannot see through the mirror. This is why you're taught to keep leaning forward and look, lean back, and keep moving your head and look around those. Before you turn that corner, look around your mirror to make sure nothing's hiding there, because I have made that mistake. An entire semi can disappear. Your mirror can only be a foot high and 6 inches, 6-8 inches across, and you can lose an entire truck or a train behind it because it's coming at just the right kind of angle that your mirror's blocking it. And then, oh boy, are you shocked when suddenly it's literally right there and you're hitting the brakes and praying you ain't hitting something, right? So you need to understand that's how that, as a driver, you need to compensate for that to be safe. So the same thing can happen in combat. And then there's obstacles, of course, things that get in your way, your visual way. So we get advanced firing rules, firing when down, extreme range, careful aim, bracing, opportunity fire, linking weapons. I don't know why I got a bit of a scratchy voice today. Like I said, I get to bed about 3 o'clock this morning, got up about 8 o'clock. We had to run some errands this morning. Had to go to the greenhouse to get fires for the flower pots out front. $120 effing. Thank God that guy gave me some extra money yesterday, and we got paid for mowing the first time last week, so that gave us the cash to pay for it. Otherwise, we wouldn't have bought it. But wife's happy now. She's got $100 worth of flowers out there, and they'll look great for the next month or so, and then she'll get tired of watering, and then that'll be that. Because I don't know. She just thinks I'm supposed to water them all the time, and I work a lot. Just saying. So we get into a section on vehicles, vehicle crews, movement. Movement is lance, declaring speeds, turning modes, advanced maneuvers, slide sipping, bootleggers, failed maneuver table, vehicle skidding, firing arcs, advanced ground vehicle hit location table. See, this is the crunch. This is all those extra things. So we go into we're used to just having a very basic set of rules to play BattleTech. Well, now you pull out 3 different books and you're flipping through. This is how we do this. This is how we're going to do that. That's crunch. That's makes the game more realistic or more challenging and a bigger pain in the butt. And some players do not like it. They just simply hate it. because they don't want to, they already figure they know the basics. What more do you need? You know, well, some of us want more, and this is where we get this stuff from. So when we take a look at that, so this was produced by FanPro, and this is built on the shoulders of similar products from FASA, the original company that was producing BattleTech, and now CGL, Catalyst Game Labs, is now the current franchise controller for the BattleTech tabletop version, and they have the luxury and the advantage of having 3 other companies prior to them having already developed a bunch of this stuff, so they get to tap into all that and revise it to suit their needs, and then add even more. So when you have a game system that's been in existence and development for 40 years, it's to be expected there's there's lots of extra possible rules and options, lots of crunch available for you. So you got motive system, advanced vehicle, critical hits table, minefields, VTOL combat, rotor hits, critical hits, advanced VTO critical hits table. We get into the chapter on infantry, digging in, mechanized battle armor infantry, morale checks, broken morale, ECM. See, I like the morale rules, and I don't remember the basic original FASA version had these. Some game systems have them. Mine does. Some don't. I've been a strong believer since I was young that even the bad guys are not stupid. They don't. No, very few entities fight to the death. So if you have an overwhelming foe, but you can break their morale and get them to break up and scatter and split up, now we have a set of rules for doing that, if we want to do that. Somebody goes, I don't know, how can we do that? You go, yeah. Then they go get that book, right? Excuse me. And then we got field guns. Field guns was something that I thought originally the BattleTech universe did away with, and I always thought that they were, I always wondered when FASA hadn't included things like towed artillery. You know, you get a 105 that you can pull behind a vehicle or a truck or horses or whatever. They don't need them no more. Why? Artillery is like some of the most basic ranged combat systems ever devised, and it goes back to antiquity in the catapult and the ballista. Why wouldn't you not have them in the future too? And it took a minute for them to come around to it, and now we have a slew of those things. Everything from various types of mobile artillery to mech mortars, right? And everything in between. So having this expanded set of stuff for artillery and for infantry is good, because infantry gets cut short, I think. Here's a section for engineers, underwear operations, miscellaneous rules. Then we get artillery ordnance damage, types of artillery ordnance chart, field artillery, and their patterns for delivering their weapons. Onboard artillery, counter battery fire, advanced abilities. So we got bullseye marksmanship, dodge maneuver, edge, maneuvering ace, melee specialist, so on. And dueling rules. Now, dueling rules. If you're a big fan of House Krita, duels are quite common in the Draconis Combine, especially amongst its military forces. And certain other houses frown on it. Most houses frown on it and try to discourage their people from engaging in such behavior. It's risky at best, no matter how good you are. But as a player, sooner or later, you get that I want to go mano a mano. We could settle this. Take the clan version. We'll settle all of this. The two of us get in the circle of equals, and the winner takes all. Right. So having some options for dueling and things like this. Then we get into the section on structures. The structure construction and development for adding armor, weapons, things like this, and internal systems has been around in some various forms over the decades. This is one of the more comprehensive versions of that I've seen to date that I can think of off the top of my head, which is good because I think buildings tend to get shortchanged a lot in BattleTech on the battlefield, considering just how versatile and how many options there are for these things and for what they're capable, how you can utilize them. And so having your armored bunkers and how to armor buildings makes sense. If you have an extremely high priority target that's extremely valuable or viable to you, would you not want to take every precaution you can, including reinforced walls with an armor plate exterior kind of thing? But we now have, there are some rules for this. And I shouldn't say that we now have, because I'm sure they've been around too. A whole subsection on smoke and the effects of smoke drift and dissipation, concealing information, the double blind rules. I have played many blind games, or double blinds, in various ways. Their way of having this involves 3 players, one acting as the moderator, and you're going to have 3 different sets of maps and a gear. That can get expensive after a while, and it also makes that third person have to bounce in and out of the room, or get everything's got to be in a way that the other players can't see where your stuff's at. Where I really liked playing this was in Battle Force, and Battle Force on a grander scale. When we're talking, on the scale of both sides are fielding regiments. RCTs, things like this, and I've played those games, and they take a long time, I grant you. But what you're getting is actually multiple engagements across a wider front. So generally speaking, we're not just going to pour it all into one general attack, which, sir, I've seen players do that. I'm just going to send my entire company right out that thing. Okay, meanwhile, my guy's over here now flanking you. That's not fair! You're a dumbass. That's what it is. But there's some challenges. The fog of war. And I've seen some pretty elaborate ways to try to hide that. One of the basics ones in Battle Force is you have these little plaques, little cards that you cover up the type of your unit. So the only way your opposing force, your opponent knew what was facing them was when they came within range of their force. And of course, the earliest versions, we would pull that little thing off once they got within eyesight, within sensor range of each other, and then we just left them off. And it wasn't until some later iterations, some later years, that I started, me and a couple of friends, we started to get really detailed on that. So if we were playing and we moved out of range, we could put that little blocker card back in place, because how good's your memory? Can you remember everything, especially if they're moving around? Oh, that's an assault lance, I don't want to do that. And then, 5-6 rounds later, oh no, that's an assault lance. Where did that come from? Because you've ignored it or ran away from it, and it went blind again, and it remaneuvered itself. So that's a kind of a semi-blind game there. But double blind being an actual third-party monitoring and interacting with it, and it talks about how that works. And it's, I've played that a couple times, and I have mixed feelings on it. I feel sorry. I've always felt sorry for the guy that has to be the moderator, because he's not in on the action. He's just observing the action, which can be boring as all get out. Spotting phase, weapon attacks, and going on to the various phases in here. Jury rigging, scavenging and repair chapter or subchapter. This really plays back to the original version of BattleTech, where salvage was everything. You would field a unit, and you couldn't just go home and just go, oh, it's the new campaign of the next battle, and everything is pristine and back in tip-top shape. No, you had to actually manage your mechs, manage your unit, and even the great houses, the big house units and stuff, still have problems with attrition and maintenance and repair. And because so much of the archaic technology is just that, it's so old and outdated that it's not going to be viable, right? And so that's just one of those things you have to take into account. Jury rigging, things like that. So we get into the whole chapter on construction rules. So we got the technological base, factual accounting. Yes, you can build your mechs from this. You can design new mechs from this. And vehicles, because there's a section on that too. it took me a little while to read through this because there was a couple chapters I went back and reread again because I'm kind of really interested in this sort of construct your own kind of set of rules. Always liked it because it gives you the opportunity to come up with some variations that the game won't come up with, or it doesn't. The company doesn't promote. That's up to you. You know, VTO options, rotor arrangement, jet boosters, special vehicle additions, bridge laying, bulldozers, minesweepers. I like this subchapter here a lot because I've always been a fan. Like I said, I like the bigger campaigns where we're fielding a much more stuff, and that includes your logistics trains, your ammo carriers, your coolant trucks, you know, your MASH units. And they're there in game for a reason, to be utilized. So you can have an entire encounter or event, or a track, I guess, whatever the hell you would call it today, involving chasing down that artillery that's been pounding the crap out of you, or have been pounding your drop ship and your logistics camp pretty mercilessly, and you're tired of it. You want to shut it down. And so this gives you the option and how you would do that, some basic intros into how that scenario plays out. Same thing with the bulldozer and minesweeper. We got amphibious vehicles, dune buggies, snowmobiles, coolant systems, trailers, jump jets, mobile headquarters, drones. Drones were something, I find it ironic that real world technology outpaced science fiction in this aspect. We all had drones even back in the 80s when this game was designed and put together. Drones existed, but they were not very common, very not sophisticated. They were extremely expensive, and generally only the R&D guys and the top government guys who were funding the R&D guys had any access or any real good information on them. At some point that will change, and we will see our version of battle armor be created. We're almost at that point now that we can build the exoskeletons and we can build a lot of stuff. One of the biggest hurdles is that power plant. How do you power something that's a little bit bigger than human size that takes more juice than 2 Teslas put together? I'm just saying, right? It's just what it is. But the fact that drones were underutilized in the original game in part was argued because the downfall of the Star League was so bad by the time we get to the end of the Third Succession War, which is when the original BattleTech is introduced, that we don't know how they end up getting that way. Right? So, or I should say, I think we downplayed or underplayed the value of drones early on because they didn't have the value that they do now. Now you just got to watch YouTube videos of what's going on over in your over there with Ukraine, for example, where they're using drones to bomb the damn. They're dropping grenades down into the hatches of tanks with a drone, and then now the tank guys are trying to come up with elaborate ways to prevent that from happening, and not always successful because these drones are quite maneuverable. In one video, they actually piloted the drone straight down into they just came down under they put the tank had this wire mesh thing above, the operator of the drone dropped in, flew in under it, and then straight just dropped the whole damn drone right down inside the cockpit of the tank. Right? So to see a resurgence of that, or see a little bit more growth, I think part of it is because the BattleTech community over the decades have really didn't see the need for or the desire for these extra things. Now, if you've ever played Shadowrun, being a rigger is top. It's an entertaining position to be in, and with the huge variety of options available today, you know, when Shadowrun came out in the late 80s, early 90s, it had a handful of drones in there, a handful of remote vehicle kind of things for your rigger to operate. And then it wasn't until Shadowrun put out the rigger sourcebook or something that we really see an expansion of that. But BattleTech didn't catch up. It still isn't. Some of the most sophisticated ones would be the AI versions of the SDS system, these big semi-battleships that were computer driven that were pretty damn difficult to destroy. And then their ground counterparts for that matter. So It's nice to see some extended rules and stuff. And we get in the equipment section, active probes, anti-missile systems. The laser anti-missile system. This is something that I had thought long and hard about back in 30 years ago, when the initial concept of it was the AMS system or something. The anti-missile system was basically a point defense Gatling gun that's mounted on your vehicle or tank or your mech that's designed to spot incoming missiles and destroy them. So that logical conclusion should be that this sort of stuff would be available, and it wasn't. It took a while for it to show up. So in this laser system, that's the one key flaw of anti-missile systems that are ballistic. They only carry so many reloads, and the reloads themselves are highly destructive if they get hit. So if the ammo bay takes a hit, you not only need the critical space for the weapon, but you need the critical space for the ammo storage as well. So you're needing, you're doubling or tripling as much as tripling your required technology needs, or to devise the design you're wanting to field, compared to, just taking it off the shelf, I guess. But the laser version of this answered that problem with the ammo carriers. Too many vehicles or mechs that are ammo dependent become next to worthless when they run out of that ammo. And a lot of the AMS systems only had a handful of shots. They only carried enough ammo to fire like five bursts at incoming missiles, or 10 bursts at max. And to have a laser version of this made utter sense to me. When I saw the pulse laser, and always thought, well, geez, why couldn't they come up with this? And it's nice to see that they eventually introduced it after the fact. Keep in mind that I played all my BattleTech using FAS's rules. I did not play with FanPro's rules, and I have yet to play with CGL's rule. So, I'm just saying, keep that in mind. So we got various advanced armors, laser reflective armor, reactive armor. This was one of the first things that threw me off when I came back to BattleTech, and I started listening to y'all and all your comments and all your, some of these guys out here are creating their own video contents. And I was talking in my head. I was thinking, what is that? What kind of armor is that? Mirrored armor, reflective armor? What? I was struggling to understand why you would have all this crap and where the hell it came from. Right now, I understand the evolution of some of that, which is great. Kind of makes it in. Artillery cannons, auto cannons. Keep putting my fan up and on. It's only like 70 degrees outside, but it was humid as all get out. So we had to turn the AC down to 67 to turn it so it would kick on, just to pull the moisture out of the damn air. And I'm still in this room. The windows are closed, the doors closed, so there's no air movement. And this room it's got two ceiling vents, but it's the coldest room in the house and the muggiest room in the summer for whatever reasons. It's the furthest from the furnace by way of the ductwork, I guess, but it's just kind of the opposite. Our bedroom's on the other side of the door in the hallway there, and that one's much hotter. It's always hotter than the rest of the house, except the bathroom, which is kind of nice. When you want that room to be warm when you're taking your showers and things like that. We get various weapons and inner sphere variants and clan variants, grenade launchers, case 2. Somewhere in here's that damn mortar too I saw, which I thought, what the hell? Or no, it's not in here, but it's mentioned in here somewhere. Laser heat sinks, jump jets, hot loading your missiles, machine guns, missile launchers, heat-seeking missiles, smoke missiles, signature systems, particle projector cannons, pulse lasers, supercharger, thunderbolt launcher. Oh yeah, talk about crunch. There's more crunch. Just the sheer volume of options for your machinery. That's a lot of crunch too. So most of what's left in here is control sheets, and then just the master tables and charts, which is good. It was a good book, and I enjoyed it a lot coming in here. Weapons, equipment, costs, expanded Level 3 battle values. This is the stuff I'm still not quite gotten the head around, but I will acknowledge that I haven't really I haven't dug in and sat down and tried to master it yet. So, and then we have the battle value, which I find myself going, bleh. I get why it's there. I get why they introduced it. For all you who only know battle value, but for us old hats who didn't have it in the past, I really kind of don't like it. I think it's just, I don't know. It's just too. Oh, I just make up whatever I want whenever I want it, and then from the next battle I'll just do it again. So you never field the same force over again. You know that in the original game, that was part of the thing. You were part of a unit, whether it was a lance, a squad, a platoon, you know, a company, whatever. You were part of that group, and ideally that group was maintained. So as long as your lance was part of the company was part of the battalion, kind of thing. You wanted consistency. So if we had damaged machinery, we had to repair it or find either through new stuff, which was hard to find, or salvage. And sometimes you got some Franken stuff in the process to try to make sure you had as much fielding as you could. You know, field as many as your units you could. And it wasn't unheard of to have 1 or 2 mechs of a company down because they're missing parts. You know, your locust gets its leg shot out from under it. It's no longer good until you find another locust leg. You're not going to strap an atlas leg on a locust. And I've heard people that try that. Well, we'll just take the mech leg off of that over there and put it over here. Dude, that mech's leg weighs more than this entire mech together. Maybe not quite, but it sure felt that way, right? So there you go, folks. That is Maximum Tech Revised Edition from BandPro. Pretty decent game supplement. A lot of good stuff in there, and I suspect most of it's carried over to CGL's version of this, which I think I've yet to see yet. Well, I don't have any of the CG. I have one basic box set from CGL, but aside from all the advanced combat rules and the wargaming rules, I don't have any of that stuff. Everything I got is the old stuff and the stuff y'all have sent me, which I'm grateful for. You know, honest. Thank you guys. Till next time, I'm Rick. He's around here somewhere, probably hiding behind me. And of course, I keep the effing wrong button. It just irritates me to no end.